All right, another blast from the past. Don Castro,
Good to see you.
thanks for coming.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So how many years have we been, our teams, been like chasing cash through data together?
I'd like to say about at least 20.
Yeah,
At least.
20 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in different boardrooms, companies with different names.
Yeah. Different presidents.
Some people that have left and gone. We just had a little reunion. Some of you should have been here. We won't name names.
Moody.
But yeah, exactly. Mooney, Norma. No, it's 20 years of
Great partnership.
literally like net patient revenue. How do we tackle that through a good data partnership, right?
Yeah.
Analytics, BI, reporting, but so much that we should all be proud of.
Absolutely.
And then now we have this topic, right? RCM innovation. And I think a lot of the dialogue, and I know we talked about it, in the break and stuff. It feels like this time it will be different. Is that?
It has to be.
Is that? It
Yeah.
almost has to be.
It has to be for
Yeah.
us to have a sustainable model.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the investments that people are making to get the data integration,
Yep.
the mapping and what all that means,
Yep.
you want to make that one-time investment and obviously keep it fresh,
Yep.
but you've got to be on the cutting edge to compete with everybody else.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and there's just so much. There's so much opportunity. The pre-service to zero balance. There's all of these nodes of the revenue cycle that have their own challenges, their own KPIs,
Yeah.
their own anomalies, their own risk stratification. Nobody knows them better than you.
Built a lot of them, unfortunately. A lot
Yeah.
of traps, right? Yeah, I think for us, we definitely have tried to kind of take the data, ingest it. Obviously, root cause analysis,
Yep.
which your tools have always allowed us to do.
Yep.
But that investment and that partnership of what does this mean when it comes in, and
Yep.
and then what do you want to do with it, I think has been really important. I know one of our clients that uses your tool for a work listing tool.
Yep.
They've been pretty fortunate that they've been able to build off of your existing
Yep.
technology, but
Yep.
it is what they're using to drive their business, and that obviously helps us as well.
Yep.
So it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that what touches on is like, it's so important for platforms like ours and others to be malleable.
Right.
Because, if you get things too cookie cutter, as you know, if you get things too hardwired, I think we used to use that term soft wiring.
Soft wiring.
Right.
Exactly.
And soft wiring is the way to go. Loosely coupled things that, the only
some
thing
standardization, like how do you want to
Right.
see your data, but obviously having system agnostic capabilities and what does it mean when it's ingested. At some point we had, I think, 7 patient accounting systems
Yeah.
just on the tenant side, and that was tough to be able to create the data translation
Yep.
tables, and your team did a lot of that for us and with us, and to take those insights and actually turn it into something meaningful, denials data, leading denials prevention, all of that, enables better revenue cycle performance.
Yeah. So what's hot now, like from whether it's AI, machine learning, like what are you excited about? Where do you see potential to have some transformational or leapfrog moments?
Yeah, so I would say selfishly, my role, I've been focused on a lot of data integration, a lot of standardization, specifically on the tenant side, which has been exciting for me because I've been trying to do it, and actually it's what I've been doing with them since the 90s.
Yeah.
But, they bought some hospitals, they've been off on their own, kind of doing their own thing. And so the lack of data insights and the lack of standardization has been tough. So we've been doing conversions and getting them on the standard platform, some of the same work you guys helped us with years ago, getting the rest of those hospitals on. And so I think, coupling that with all the other data insights and the AI that's out there, I think is going to really help us take everything to the next level.
Yeah. You said something that sparked, just because we, for a lot of years, have geeked out around something like mapping.
Yes.
If you think about Norma and yourself and even myself in some of those workshops, and certainly all the team.
The real smart ones that do all the work?
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. Mapping is one of those things that's, it always sounds like, oh, mapping. But again, nobody knows more than you the complexity of revenue cycle mapping. And, we're even investing in automating our own assembly line, right?
Nice.
So when we're working with clients to do that, because you say wow, you could spend a month, if not more, depending on the size of the engagement, especially for clients that have Epic, Cerner, or Meditech, and you got to normalize all that.
Right.
So we're even having our own AI bots tackle mapping, and we're even working
Who's
with
the exception
third-party partners, right? Because we got to stay focused on our jobs to be done. So we look for innovation and people that know, AI in this context of automating mapping.
Right. It's a lot of work, and I personally haven't quite figured out how to automate it. So when you figure it out, I might enlist your services there.
Yep.
Because doing that current state analysis, and I know we've done it for years, but people are just using and interpreting data so differently, and then the health plans interpret it differently.
Yeah.
So if the Blues interpret a CARC and RARC code one way, and Aetna does it another way, and we want it mapped to one code. This is a clinical dispute. Understanding that, and then how we want it presented to us to take action is almost been a full-time job for just a group of individuals within the Conifer space. But as I've been ramping up for our integrations, we need that for current state, future state, and then how does it look against that standardization?
Yeah, data curation it never gets enough airtime.
Right.
But it's like if let's say that you have a high performance car and you see it and it wins the race. Nobody talks about how many times you open the hood.
Right.
And you have to open the hood every single day in the revenue cycle when you talk about data curation.
Right.
But that's where there is opportunity, is because even cognitive process automation versus robotic,
right? You
can teach certain smart bots to become RCM mappers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, there's going to be false positives, there's going to be challenges, but it'll still scale more efficiently.
Absolutely.
So that when companies like you are growing,
yeah,
you can say, hey, we've reduced our cycle time for data curation.
Yeah, and I think, we, in our world, from our Conifer Core platform, we call that kind of supervised machine learning, because the system will generate some of those exception-based, which has been pretty meaningful for us. But you still have to, someone has to look at it. Now, that probably doesn't have to be the future for us, but it has been something that we've had to tackle and continue to reinvent. What do we want this to do? When we see this problem, how do we want to react to it?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, that's always the challenge. Where do we start? Any other areas like topical denials or underpayments, all the normal ones, but through the lens of innovation, do you think are more ripe for making progress faster? I
think, you touched on cycle times. I definitely think there's something more we can do with payer scorecards. You guys have a lot of great ones. But how do we partner and take out some of that friction with the health plans? Something that they would also recognize and I'll just say accept. Because sometimes, we will present data and they're like, yeah, that's just your data. But reality is, it's real live. Here's when we sent you the claim. Here's all the ADRs you sent. And you're just churning and churning. So I think figuring out how you couple that with meaningful conversations with the health plans. I don't know how you automate or make some innovation.
There's layers of complexity that have to be dealt with.
But I also think figuring out how you tie that to payment and There's folks that are specifically in the managed care world who are interested in more automated payments and putting those in, some of the contract terms. There's something there, I think, if we could couple the data that you all have with, okay, 97% of the time you pay these type of claims. Why are we each touching these?
Exactly.
So let me bill you. Let's go through the process, and if it has all these elements, let's just cut
this
to the
is
chase
something
and
that
get
we're
it paid.
so passionate about. We share the passion because we try to listen to our clients.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We couldn't share that passion more. Right now we call it Payer Action Center. It's kind of being, the neutral party in the middle that's saying, hey, provider and payer, y'all are beating each other up with a lot of touches on these claims. Some not being touched, some have 7 phone calls on each side of the fence. Isn't there a better way? And, so it's pretty exciting because I think that everybody's I think payers are trying to optimize.
I think
in
so.
many, many cases, their cost to adjudicate, just like you're always trying to optimize cost to collect. And we just have to think differently. We can't all gamify each other the same
be
way.
one-sided, right? And I think
that's right.
Maybe you're giving up a little more of your yield on the provider side because you're not going to have the administrative burden on the back end.
Well, that's the thing.
Here, right? I mean, that might be worth it to someone.
You pay somewhere, right?
Exactly, and that's one. From a Conifer perspective, that's one of our most costly areas, and that's even with automation. So we do a lot of automated appeal processes. Some of it's offshore, but it is costly just to file a clinical appeal or a technical appeal, and some of it could just be avoided. Whether it's more upstream analytics to understand what activity happened while the patient was in-house, or downstream kind of post-adjudication. One way or the other, we're spending money on both sides.
Yeah. I really like the idea of, and we're driving like settlement engine where you pull the data. I call it AR, you guys at the payer call it claims payable.
Right.
We got to get it to reconcile first, but take 10,000 accounts and say, let's try to settle these without one-by-one adjudication. And I think there's been a lot of payers that have had their own initiatives to do that. There's been a lot of providers. So it just needs to be a couple of people that are leading the market that says, wow, there's a better way to do this. Everybody, ultimately, especially you guys have always been great about holding the payers accountable to what your contracted net revenue is.
Right.
Like, I'm just trying to get you to pay what you signed up for.
the minimum.
Right. I just want what we earn.
Right.
It's crazy that so much cost, and this is why we have the $250 billion of waste. So we could shift to that because they're making us wrap up, of course.
Yes.
With you're a veteran and a warrior in the RCM space. What do you think can be done in 5 years? We're asking this question a lot. Looking for the pragmatic answer too, right? So, of course, we have to blend in corporate inertia and, funk from the political landscape and all of the blah, blah, blah. But
put all that aside.
Taking that into consideration, I think I asked our friend Scott this question in his old life with 13,000 FTEs in the revenue cycle. What percentage can we get automated?
Yeah, and we're pretty fortunate that we've been able to do that more organically over the years.
Yeah.
But where we haven't been able to do is really on that denial side, right? And so I think that's going to be the sweet spot.
Yeah.
I also think figuring out how we actually take the data, what issues we're having payer conversations, the tough conversations, somewhere in between, and I think you guys could be a good mediator in this, is having those payer discussions where we are doing more automated claims processing and using your data as a neutral, independent third party.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who pays you. Someone would pay you, but one of us would pay you. But I think having something like that.
It should be a shared model, right?
Yeah.
Where there's value engineering. If both sides are reducing unnecessary duplicative work,
Right.
then there's that things can be funded. We were talking about this earlier. There's so much opportunity to fund through the $250 billion in waste.
Absolutely.
It's really redirecting the dollars in many cases to value engineering, right?
Exactly. The second one, I know you only wanted one, but the second one is really in the value-based care space.
Yep, sure.
That's an area I'm passionate about. I've seen lots of people
Yep.
benefit from that.
Yep.
And I'm, pretty fortunate that I get to see data from front end and back end.
Yep.
I don't really see what happens when it gets over to our value-based care side of the
Okay.
house. I imagine it's pretty meaningful.
Yep.
But that's an area that I think couple
Yep.
that together,
No question.
whether it is how we're treating our own employees, because
Yep.
we're self-insured on the Conifer
self-insured.
and tenant side.
Yep.
So what you do with that
Sure.
could be pretty amazing.
There's great insights in that data to your point.
Exactly. And so having a place, a repository
Yep.
that says, hey, did you know that
Yeah.
40% of your employees are using the ED as their office visits instead of that sort of, waste that as a self-insured, employer could be meaningful.
I mean, I would say it this
someone.
way. There's probably more that we both could do with the fact that between our partnership, you think about you guys have been with us since the beginning. So we have 13 years of adjudicated zero balance data.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be the first to admit, right? Could we do more if what are the insights?
What's the untapped?
Insights in that data?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're bringing the power of crowdsourcing and things like that.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
that there is deep wisdom in those things.
I'd rather do that internally with a partner that you trust
Yeah.
than giving it to someone else like an AWS or someone that could monetize the data in a way that maybe we don't want.
We need the data.
I want it governed.
It's got governed, and it's got to be to create good.
Yeah.
I hate to say it that like some people say that like a bumper sticker, but we're trying to use data for good, right?
Absolutely.
And ultimately to help our clients,
Right.
provide value for the consumer.
Right.
If we focus, so many of the value equation lives at creating value for the consumer, and then everybody gets the benefit if it's
Absolutely.
done right, right?
Yeah.
So-
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, that's probably a good place for us to stop because we could talk all day about it.
I know. Fun times.
Well, thanks for coming by.
Thank you. Appreciate
We'll have
it.
more of these reunions, right?
Exactly.
And we'll get
Gotta do it more often.
other people to come and hang out. But
Well, thank you.